We are locked and loaded, a jam-packed Wednesday show, taking a look at the Pro Football Focus grades and what that can mean moving forward to a game against Alabama where every little mistake could be costly. That and some guests coming up here today on a Wednesday Locked On Vols.
You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, good Wednesday, everybody, and welcome into it. This is Locked On Vols, your go-to Tennessee Volunteers podcast each and every day, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. That's your team every day. Hey, everybody, I am Eric Kane. Let me get my little, if you're watching on YouTube, you can't see my name. There we go. My name is there. My name is Eric Kane. I am your host here of this podcast. Can't thank you enough for hanging out with me each and every day. Please pound that like button. Jump in the comment section if you're watching on YouTube, but most importantly, please subscribe if you haven't already. And of course, it's free wherever you find your podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Outerbox, all those good places, Odyssey. So can't thank you enough for that. Hey, I write for the On3 site covering Tennessee. That's VolQuest.com. We've got great game day coverage, and we got great coverage all the time, but it's Alabama week. If you want to know every single thing about Tennessee Volunteers and the Alabama Crimson Tide heading into Saturday, that's at VolQuest.com, and of course right here on Locked On Vols. All right, so let's get into it. I'm in this unique situation to where in football season, it's not really hard to program a show. I mean, you guys know we kind of do the same different type of features and the same formatted shows, towards the end of the week with a lot of guest heavy, leaning towards the matchup. I'll have my preview of my keys of the game on Friday. We got Boogie on Friday. We got Josh Ward on Wednesday, PFF on Wednesdays, scoring plays, looking back on Monday, all that type of stuff. But, for Alabama, I wanted to bring more voices onto the show as much as I can. And so I've already pre-recorded tons of interviews. I've got some more scheduled for later in the week. And I'm in this situation to where I have more content than I have to fit into these episodes. So we're going to be jam-packed the rest of the week, and I can't wait for it. I think you guys are going to love it. Probably going to be posting some additional interviews on the YouTube channel, and I'll find a way to audio podcast this as well. But seriously, we've got so much content. I can't wait to get into that. So because of all that, which is a good thing. This is a real good thing, okay? Because of all that, I typically spend 2 segments discussing the Pro Football Focus grades from the week prior. I'm only going to do 1 segment here today, and then we're going to hear from Roger Hoover of the Crimson Tide Sports Network, and then Josh Ward to close out a show. But we're going to fly through some PFF grades. I mean, point blank, it was a blowout, right? I mean, it was what it was. Tennessee absolutely dominated the LSU Tigers, and we'll go through these grades real quick. Brew McCoy led the way on offense, 83 snaps, a 74.7 grade. And if you, a lot of you guys were asking me to post the grading scale somewhere. If you're watching on YouTube, the bottom scroll, I have listed the grades there. If you're listening right now, just keep a mental note. You got the elite category, 99 to 90. The very good category, 89 to 80 or 80 to 89. Above average starter is 70 to 79. An average starter is 60 to 69. A below average starter is 50 to 59. And then less than 50 is considered a backup. That's how Pro Football Focus does its grading scale. But Brew McCoy led the way with a 74% grade on offense, playing in 83 snaps. Jabari Small was second. He played in 50 snaps, 71.6. Jalen Wright had 25 snaps, 67.9. Cooper Mays on the offensive line, 67.9% was his grade, played in all 82 snaps as well. Jalen Hyatt, 69 snaps, 66.6 was his grade. Squirrel White, only 3 snaps, but did his job there. 64.6 was his grade. Hendon Hooker, 83 snaps, which again, every snap that Hendon Hooker was out there, so was Cooper Mays, and there's 1 snap difference there, so I don't know what that's about. But anyway, Hendon Hooker, 83 snaps, a 63.3% of his grade. Ramel Keaton, 80 snaps, 60% was his grade. You've got, trying to go through, I'm not reading all the guys that got in on that last series to take a knee. Dane Davis, who played 19 snaps at left tackle in this football game, graded out at 55.8. Jacob Warren at tight end, 50 snaps, 52.9. Dylan Sampson, 8 snaps, 52.2. Darnell Wright, 82 snaps, 50.9. Princeton Fance, 43 snaps on the day, 49.9. Javonte Spraggins, 82 snaps, 47.4 was his grade. Jeremiah Crawford, 64 snaps, 46.1 was his grade. And Jerome Corbin, 82 snaps, 44.5% was his grade. Again, this is not everything. It's just something. Again, the offensive line played exceptionally well. Did not give up any sacks. Okay. Had over 230 yards rushing. Only surrendered 2 plays behind the line of scrimmage. And then you got a lot of your starting offensive linemen grading out in the 40s and 50s. I don't buy into that an awful lot. Again, that's why it's something. It's not everything. And that's what I try to preach here as much as I can when we look at the PFF grades. But I do like the PFF grades. It gives you a different angle and a different perspective kind of this football game. Let's break down the protection, shall we? Let's go. Let's see here. Pass blocking. Jabari Small, graded out. He had 23 reps as a pass blocker, 80.2%, which is good to see. Darnell Wright had 36 reps of pass blocking, 77.7. Jalen Wright, 10 reps of pass blocking at the running back position, 75.5. So it's good to see the running backs doing well in that regard. Javonte Spraggins, 36 reps of pass blocking, and he had 72.8. Cooper Mays, 36 reps at pass blocking, 70.8. Again, Tennessee did a great job protecting Hendon Hooker on the day. Princeton Fant, 16 reps of a pass blocker, 68% was his grade. Jacob Warren, 22 reps as a pass blocker, 50.7 was his grade. Dane Davis, 11 reps at pass blocking, 48.5 was his grade. And then it gets pretty ugly down here, guys. You've got Jerome Carvin, 36 reps as a pass blocker, 28.7%. Jeremiah Crawford, 25% as a pass blocker, 12.9 is his grade. And then Dylan Sampson had 3 reps as a pass blocker. Of course, he gave up the big blow to Hendon Hooker, and he has 0.5% as his percentage for pass blocking. Again, the offensive line played phenomenal. You can always get better, and I'm not Glenn Ellerby here, but the offensive line played well, and you've got pass blocking grades of 12.9 for Jeremiah Crawford, 28.7 for Jerome Carvin, 48.5 for Dane Davis. I'm not sure how much I buy into that. I really don't. Now, Jeremiah Crawford is a much better run blocker than he is a pass blocker. Gerald Mincey, a big reason why he won the job is because he is an exceptional pass blocker. He's done a good job this year for the most part. Jeremiah Crawford's a better run blocker than him, though. So, again, I wasn't shocked that he had a lower grade, but in the same sense, it just kind of is what it is. So, again, that's that was the grades overall in terms of pass blocking. Let's go look at run blocking, and we'll see what happened here. Jalen Hyatt, 36 reps of a run blocking, 78.6% on the perimeter. Jacob Warren, 28 reps, 70.2. Cooper Mays, 46 reps, 64.8 was his grade. Brew McCoy, 47 reps, 61.0% was his grades. Offensive lineman block for touchdowns. Receivers block for, offensive lineman block for first downs. Receivers on the perimeter block for touchdowns. Let's go down here to Romel Keaton, 45 reps as a pass blocker, 58.3 was his grade. Dane Davis, 8 reps as a pass blocker or as a run blocker, 56.8% was his grade. Jeremiah Crawford, 39 reps as a run blocker, 53.0 was his grade. Princeton Fant, 27 reps as a run blocker, 49.4 was his grade. Jerome Carvin, 46 reps as a run blocker, 44.8. Darnell Wright, 46 snaps, 43.7. And Javonte Spraggins, 46 snaps, 42.3. That's a look at the offense. Quickly, let's go take a look at the defense, all right? Byron Young played phenomenally. SEC Defensive Lineman of the Week, 82.6 was his grade, the highest grader on the Tennessee defense, and he played in 50 snaps. Joshua Joseph, 17 snaps to that Leo spot. 17 is a good number for him. 80.8% was his grade. Trey Flowers, 73 snaps, 73.9 was his grade. Wesley Walker, 25 snaps at the star position, 72.3 was his grade. Dominic Bailey got 13 snaps on the defensive line, 70.8 was his grade. Karad Garland, 15 snaps, 69.7 was his grade. Roman Harrison, 41 snaps, 69.1% was his grade. A really good day for Roman Harrison. Danico Salter made the most of his 6 reps on the day, 67.3 was his grade. DeJohn Terry played 19 snaps, graded out at 66. Jeremy Banks, 46 snaps at middle linebacker, 65.2 was his grade. Aaron Beasley, 43 snaps, 64.5 was his grade. And then just for just for consistency's sake, let's go down here and find Juwan Mitchell. 44 snaps, 56.1 was his grade. So you're seeing Aaron Beasley, Jeremy Banks, and Juwan Mitchell all playing 46, 44, and 43 snaps respectively. So that was obviously good to see. Let's continue to go down here. Bryson Easton got 21 reps. Elijah Simmons got 15 reps. They continue to rotate those defensive linemen. Tamari McDonald, a nice bounce back day, a horrendous day against Florida. 53 reps at star, 61.6 was his grade. Latrell Bumpus, 50 snaps. That might be a career high for him. 60.9% was his grade. He continues to be playing good football for Rodney Gardner. Amari Thomas, this is what you love to see. His snap count got cut down to 28. He'll play more than that usually, but for a guy that played 65 snaps against Pittsburgh and got up there against Florida as well, 28 snaps. That was good to see from Amari Thomas. Jayla McCullough, 77 snaps, 57.4% was his grade. Tyler Barron played 35 snaps, 56.9 was his grade. Kamal Hadden, 74 snaps, 55% was his grade. Christian Charles, 69 snaps, 42.6 was his grade. So if you look at the total snap counts, the secondary dominated again. McCullough, 77 snaps, Hadden, 74 snaps, Flowers, 73 snaps, Charles, 69 snaps, Tamari McDonald, 53 snaps. Your 5 starting defensive backs led the defense in overall snaps. You like to see a little bit more rotation there, for sure. Quickly, let's go to the coverage breakdown on defense. So I like to look at this, and I like to see who was targeted the most and who gave up the most receptions. Trayvon Flowers targeted 3 times, gave up 2 receptions for 9 yards. You had Wesley Walker, who was targeted twice, gave up 2 receptions for 9 yards. You had Tamari McDonald, who was targeted 10 times, give up 7 receptions for 55 yards. You had Kamal Hadden, who was targeted 6 times, gave up 4 receptions for 41 yards. Jayla McCullough was targeted twice, gave up 2 receptions for 37 yards. And then Christian Charles was targeted 8 times, gave up 6 receptions for 68 yards. And the touchdown that was given up to Keyshawn Boutte came from Tamari McDonald, actually. He gave up that touchdown. So there you go. Last but not least, one other thing I want to look at on defense. I want to look at the missed tackles on defense. Christian Charles had 4 missed tackles. Tamari McDonald had 2 missed tackles. Deshaun Rucker had 1 missed tackle. Kamal Hadden had 1 missed tackle. Juwan Mitchell had 1 missed tackle. Jeremy Banks had a missed tackle. Latrell Bumpus had a missed tackle. Byron Young had a missed tackle. You see a lot of those missed tackles came from those in the secondary. Against Alabama, that will get you beat. Point blank. You've got to sharpen those tools up a little bit as you head into a matchup with Alabama. So, guys, I'm sorry. I know I blew through this. Usually I spend a lot more time on the Pro Football Focus than I did today. But just to give you a little bit of an idea, again, Pro Football Focus, it's something. It's not everything, but a nice little perspective to look at when you're, honestly looking at and evaluating the game tape and looking ahead to the next week. All right. So that's going to do it here for this segment of Locked On Vols. And we're going to move on now. And we're going to talk to Roger Hoover of the Crimson Tide Sports Network. Really excited to talk to Roger Hoover here next, right here on Locked On Vols. But these days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have the access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs, all right? LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. So go ahead and post your job, then add your job and the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you are hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you like to interview and then ultimately hire. It's why small businesses rank LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster and for free. Post your job for free at LinkedIn.com/LockedOnCollege. That's LinkedIn.com/LockedOnCollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions, they do apply. All right, our next guest on the show, he is a man that really needs no introduction, but I'm going to introduce him just in case you haven't heard of him. He is a Tennessee graduate, a resident or a native, excuse me, of the Tri-Cities, Kingsport, Tennessee. Got a start in broadcasting, probably not a start, but one of his early starts, broadcasting the Kingsport Mets. That's where I hail from back in my early days as well. Did a little Carson Newman of broadcasting. That's where I caught up with this next guest. But now is a big-time play-by-play broadcaster. He does pregame, postgame, pretty much anything you can possibly imagine for the Crimson Tide Sports Network. Roger Hoover now joins the show. Roger, what's up, man?
Hey, it's great to be with you, Eric, on the third Tuesday in October, getting ready for the third Saturday in October coming up this week. We're really excited for Tennessee and Alabama to kick it off.
Dude, it's gonna be a good one, man. You're right. It's gonna be fun. And kind of on that, just real quick, this game has so much more meaning for so many people, especially those in the generations above you and I. Even though it's been completely one-sided the last 15 years, this game still means something for you. Your background growing up a Tennessee fan, attending the university, being a Vol Radio Network alum, VFL Films, all that type of stuff. Now working at Alabama and really just coming into your own and kind of doing your own thing now. It's kind of a unique week for you, but still for you especially, this game means a lot.
It really does. And it really started because of how I grew up and just the respect I had for the Tennessee and Alabama rivalry. And I've been telling a few people down here, like, I think this has the most buzz we've had around a Tennessee Alabama game since the 90s, since, I would say even 96 when Alabama was undefeated going into that game. Tennessee had the Florida loss, but was still ranked pretty high. And Tennessee ended up winning on the long run from Jay Graham. But it's really been since that game where you have both teams playing at their peak at the same time. And usually it's just a very streaky, very up and down rivalry. We've seen a long winning streak for Alabama in the Coach Saban era. Coach Fulmer had his long winning streak. Coach Majors had a good one, and that was followed by a great one for Coach Bryant as well. But I just grew up really in awe of this rivalry, and partly because from my family on my dad's side, we had family on both sides of the rivalry a little bit, mostly Tennessee, but a little bit of Alabama as well. So grew up with a strong respect for all things Crimson Tide, and really was fascinated as a kid with Bear Bryant too, and really learned about him. And that was kind of my entry into Alabama sports as it would turn out down the road. But it's just such a great game full of so much history. And I just go back to my grandfather who grew up a Tennessee football fan in the 1930s. I mean, that was the game. That was usually one of the only times they were on the radio where they could get it in his small town where he grew up in Dayton, Tennessee. So, and that was the game that really put Southern football on the map in a lot of ways. I think there were some of those great Alabama teams in the 20s that went west to the Rose Bowl, captured the nation's attendance, but there really wasn't a Southern football rivalry that got the nation's attention quite like what we saw with Tennessee and Alabama in the 1930s. And people around Alabama remember as well, there was a time period where Alabama and Auburn didn't play every year. The rivalry was suspended from the early 20th century till about 1948 or so. So for the formative years of Alabama football, Tennessee was the rivalry. And of course, we have the cigar tradition. People go crazy for that now. I think the younger generation has kind of taken that and run with it as well. So it's great that this game has the meaning that it has once again.
It's just so funny to me because, I mean, there's some dumb NCAA rules and everything, but technically that's an NCAA rule. Obviously, you don't want student athletes and smoking cigars, but it's just so funny, man. It's a cloud of smoke one way or the other, regardless of where you are, and the smell just stays with you. Hey, what about this team? Or really this matchup? I mean, whenever everything was going on with Tennessee, with Jeremy Pruitt, leaving the program and the investigation and all that more Tennessee drama, right? I kind of said this on the 2-minute drill the other day, and it's kind of unique. If you sit back and just think about it, fast forward 18 months, could you ever imagine that Tennessee is playing a top 6 showdown between undefeated teams, third Saturday in October? I mean, this is quite the accelerated rebuild for Tennessee. Of course, it's not there yet for Josh Heupel, but I just feel like this match in particular, no one saw coming, a year and a half ago, and seeing Tennessee being in position to be a good football team and take on and play with a great football team like Alabama.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it started last year with the game in Tuscaloosa. That was a really fight for the Crimson Tide for the first three quarters, spilling into the fourth quarter. And that was with what we all knew was a roster that Josh Heupel inherited that had so many players leave the program in the transfer portal. And he was able to compete with Alabama with a roster that really wasn't his own. So now as he keeps getting more of his players and Hendon Hooker continues to come into his own at quarterback, it really is remarkable the sharp turnaround that Tennessee's been able to have, and it so quickly as well. And we just kind of knew going into this season, if Tennessee could beat Florida, Tennessee could beat Pitt early in the year. And then, of course, even the LSU game, we were all kind of still a little nervous about that trip to see whether or not the Vols would still be undefeated going into this matchup. But they certainly took care of business from the opening kickoff. So Tennessee's held up its end of the bargain. Certainly Alabama has as well, with an undefeated start to the season, going 6-0, including 3-0 in the SEC.
All right, so let's get to this Alabama team. You're on the you're on the ground level there. You get a good view of it. We'll talk about the quarterback injury situation here in a moment, but I know the listeners and viewers of this podcast and people who read my work are sick and tired of me saying this, but you know me, I love football. I love watching good football players play, and I said this to you over the summer at SEC Media Days. Will Anderson Jr. is the best football player on college on the planet. He just is. What's Tennessee going to have to do to slow him down?
It's going to take a lot because it's not just Will Anderson Jr. It's also Dallas Turner coming off the other edge, and then Chris Braswell will be coming in there as well. They have what they call the cheetah package when those three are on the field. And then it was funny, I interviewed Henry To'oTo'o yesterday for some of our content, and he goes, hey, I'm part of the cheetah package as well. Like he's pretty proud to be out there as well, helping direct those guys. But it's a fast, physical defense. I think the defense has played at a really solid level all season for Alabama. And you look back to the Texas A&M game, yes, it was 24-20, but 17 of Texas A&M's points were scored off turnovers. I think the defense has a much different night if Alabama doesn't turn the football over like we saw. So it's a defense that's played extremely well. They're very fast and physical, and I think along the defensive line, they're starting to look like Alabama a little bit more. When you look at Jaheim Otis, being over 340 pounds, I mean, he's impossible to block, and he also has some size and quickness to him. Tim Smith, Tim Keenan, some other really strong guys, DJ Dale at the nose guard position as well. So it starts there, and then you have the edge rushers, and the secondary is still probably a work in progress at this point for the Crimson Tide, but that's where Coach Saban spends most of his time during practice. He loves coaching up.
Lucky them.
Yeah, exactly. The defensive backs always have two coaches watching them at all time at the very minimum. So it's a defense, I think, that is playing really well going into this matchup against Tennessee, and I think the biggest question mark I have coming in this matchup is how can Alabama play with tempo like Tennessee is going to play with, because they really haven't seen an up-tempo style like this all throughout the season.
I do want to have a question real quick, and I mean, I haven't watched every single Alabama game. I've seen them a couple of times, obviously, but why isn't Eli Ricks a bigger impact?
That has been a question we've been asking a lot as well, because we heard all the hype coming in from LSU when he transferred over. He was a preseason All-American in the summer, and everyone just assumed he would be a lockdown corner along with Kool-Aid McKinstry. Kool-Aid McKinstry certainly is for the Crimson Tide. He's playing at a pretty high level, but there's been the emergence of a redshirt freshman named Terrion Arnold who has really played well. And, he ended up making the game-winning play when he was able to help force a pass breakup against Texas A&M at the very end of the ball game. And he's just played physically strong as anybody can play at a cornerback position. And if you're able to play up to Nick Saban's standard for that position, I mentioned that's where he spends all of his time in practice. That speaks volumes. So, we've seen Eli Ricks here and there, but he still hasn't cracked the rotation quite as much as we thought. He did get some playing time against Arkansas, but we didn't see his name called very much against Texas A&M. But that has been one of the storylines this year, because, again, going into the season, we figured he would be a huge part of this defense.
Roger Hoover, the Crimson Tide Sports Network, here on the show. Roger, biggest storyline of the week, obviously, who's going to play quarterback for Alabama? I know you don't have that answer right now. It's going to be a day-by-day thing. What needs to happen for Bryce Young to get back out there? Exited 2 weeks ago, and the Arkansas win for Alabama, did not play against A&M. And if no Bryce Young, what does Tennessee need to be aware of? Jalen Milroe, and of course, another option potentially could be a Ty Simpson.
Well, starting with Bryce Young, it's all going to be about just pain management and tolerance at this point from the AC joint sprain that he suffered against Arkansas. Because even that day, he tried to warm up, getting ready for the second half, wanted to come back in the game, but ultimately the medical staff said it wasn't the best idea for him to do that. Jalen Milroe finishes that game. And then throughout the week, last week, he was able to practice some, and it was really day by day. He may have had a good day one day and not been able to throw as much the next. And then we pretty much learned during pregame warmups when he was able to take snaps, but then he didn't throw at all in pregame warmups against Texas A&M. So by that point, we kind of realized it would be Jalen Milroe that would play and start and play every snap of the Texas A&M game. So I think it's once again going to come down to pregame warmups just to see how he feels. And I'm sure this week he'll be able to throw a little bit more in practice. There's some cautious optimism, it sounds like, around Bryce Young entering this week. But again, it's all about how he's feeling just in the moment coming up on Saturday in those pregame warmups once he's on Shields-Watkins Field, because up until then, you really can't tell. I mean, practice really is important as well. He needs to be able to show in practice that he can handle the strain of throwing with that right shoulder in order to be able to be counted on during the game on Saturday. So if he's unable to go, Jalen Milroe started the Texas A&M game, and he is a fast, dynamic runner. Some people have called him on Alabama's defense, they've called him the fastest quarterback they've ever seen. And I think anybody that sees the tape of that 77-yard run he had against Arkansas will certainly attest to that. And that was really the play of the season to this point, because at that point it was a 28-23 game on the road. All the momentum was with Arkansas. All of it ended right on that run as Alabama was able to punch it in after he got close to the goal line, went up 35-23, and it was really never a game again after that. So he's a very physical runner. He was like 12 of 19 passing, 111 yards against Texas A&M. There were a few drops mixed in there, and he did have an interception as well. And 111 yards is not what this offense needs. They need, closer. Bryce Young consistently delivers, 300, 400 each time out. So I think the passing game is going to be a focus for him throughout this week of practice in case he does have to play in the spot of Bryce Young. But I've heard the name Ty Simpson as well. I think still Alabama would stick with Milroe if Bryce is unable to go, because he knows the offense. The offense has a lot of confidence in him, and I think he will be able to make those throws as time goes on, specifically as he gets closer to next year when it'll be a battle between he and Ty Simpson for the starting quarterback job once Bryce goes to the NFL. But there's a lot of confidence around Jalen Milroe, especially with how physical he plays. I mean, he and Jahmyr Gibbs in the backfield at the same time, very hard to slow down.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, you just pulled off. Technically, he didn't get the Arkansas win, but you win the Arkansas game. You win, A&M game. If Young can't go, he's without a doubt starting for sure. Just how can Tennessee be effective against that? All right, I said 8 minutes. We're almost at 13 minutes, and I have one more question. Do you have time?
I'll go for it.
All right. This offense outside the quarterback position, it starts and stops. Jahmyr Gibbs, what a dynamic player, leading the team in rushing, leading the team in receiving. What are the challenges in trying to corral Jahmyr Gibbs? And then these receivers look like it kind of took them a little bit while, but it seems like they're kind of coming into their own now. There's Jermaine Burton's there, formerly of Georgia, of course, but there's no Mechie, there's no Williams there anymore. Some new faces, but it looks like they're starting to settle in a little bit now midway in the season.
Starting to settle in. We still haven't seen that one dynamic receiver kind of emerge out of that group. It's been very much by committee so far this season. Jermaine Burton's really talented, who transferred from Georgia, and Bryce was able to target him pretty early in the season, but then his production has dropped off over the last few games, even though he did have a touchdown against Texas A&M. And then beyond that, Holden is really physical. He's tough to tackle, especially when he has the ball in the open field. Kobe Prentice is somebody they like a lot. He's speedy. He's able to go on the outside. He's able to take the cover off the secondary occasionally, but they're still waiting to see JoJo Earl be completely healthy, as he had a foot injury in preseason camp, and then also dealing with injuries. Tyler Harrell, who transferred from Louisville, and he was able to go through some pregame warmups this past Saturday. I think we'll learn more about his status from Coach Saban as the week goes along, but he's also a speedster, very much in the vein of Jameson Williams, who was so good last season in this Alabama offense. But the leading receiver so far is Jahmyr Gibbs, and he's also the leading rusher. And, some people think he could be a 1,000-yard rusher as well as catch 1,000 yards worth of passes for what he's going to be able to do this season. He's just so fast, and he's able to hit the hole quickly. He's elusive, and going back to that Arkansas game, he had 2 touchdown runs of over 70 yards that completely put that game away. So Jahmyr Gibbs, we're certainly glad he's in Crimson because he is extremely fast. He looks like he's going to have an Alvin Kamara type career in the NFL as well. I mean, it's the exact same skill set that he brings to the table as what we saw AK bring to Tennessee and then the NFL.
Yep. Jim Chaney, I do believe he would have made a fine defensive back, but that was a big swing and a miss there because Jahmyr Gibbs is a great offensive weapon. Roger, thanks for putting in the overtime, man. Really big fan of you, your career so far, your work. Do a great job over the Crimson Tide Sports Network. An East Tennessee native, a Tennessee alum, and a fan of college football. And it doesn't get any better than this. Undefeated Alabama, undefeated Tennessee coming up this Saturday. Roger, thanks so much, man. Open invitation anytime you want to come back on the show.
Sounds great, Kaner. Thank you so much for having me on. And shout out to Matthew Osborne watching. Hope you're doing well, Matthew.
Awesome stuff there from Roger Hoover of the Crimson Tide Sports Network. Hope you guys enjoyed that and got a little bit of a scout for the Alabama Crimson Tide. Coming up next, it's going to be Josh Ward for a little Ward Wednesday hit right here on Locked On Vols. But if you haven't tried Built Bar Puffs yet, you're truly depriving yourself of one of life's greatest joys. And guess what? There's now a new flavor. Ready? It's delicious, indulgent cookie dough. Covered in chocolate, that's right, Built has done it once again. Let me introduce you to your new favorite, cookie dough chunk puffs. Have light and chewy texture, real cookie dough chunks, and of course, they're covered in 100% real chocolate. All the joys of eating cookie dough without the hassle of making it. Plus, it's healthy for you. Cookie dough chunk puffs only have 160 calories. They have a whopping 15 grams of protein right inside of them. Run to Built.com, snag a box for you and the family. It'll be that perfect treat like all Built bars. The new cookie dough chunk puff is covered in 100% real chocolate. That means they're healthy and tasty. Chocolate covered cookie dough with light, fluffy texture. It is so good. Chef's kiss, right? What's great about Built is that all their bars are made with this protein, which absorbs in your body more efficiently, provides tons of health benefits. You're eating something that tastes good, but also something good for you. So how can you order it? Right now, go to Built.com. And while you're there, use the promo code LOCKED15. And then you're going to get 15% off your order. That's promo code LOCKED15 at Built.com for 15% off your next order. Thanks so much to Built for making these tasty and delicious treats. Welcome back into your Wednesday edition of Locked On Vols. I'm Eric Kane. Thanks so much for hanging out with me here today, and we've teased it all morning long. Let's get the man, the myth, the legend onto the show here. Josh Ward, the former host of Locked On Vols, and now joining us every single Wednesday for Ward Wednesday. Josh, kind of a slow week here on Rocky Top, eh?
Yeah, trying to figure out topics for the radio show, and I know you're doing the same here on Locked On Vols. This honestly is as exciting of a time as Tennessee fans have been able to experience in a long time. And there were a lot of good times on Rocky Top. The Tennessee baseball team just had a terrific season. Tennessee basketball has done a lot of good things, but when we joke about it being a football school, it's not really a joke. It's a football school in terms of what drives the most emotion. And right now, Tennessee is riding high with a big opportunity, and it's a lot of fun to be talking about this because we haven't talked about Tennessee, Alabama mattering, especially like this, in a long time, and it's good to have these conversations again.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. This is one of the topics in the Monday night chat over at VolQuest.com this week. Yeah, I mean, it's nothing compares. Like, I'm the biggest baseball fan. You and I both love the Braves. We love watching baseball. We love watching, game 46 of 162. But nothing compares to football, and nothing compares to being involved with a good football team. Your radio show, my podcast, my work at VolQuest.com, the fans, the university, Spire Sports, when Tennessee wins, everybody wins. I mean, it truly does, and nothing compares. Baseball was fantastic, and it was great. Basketball is awesome, but nothing compares to a winning football team. It's not even. It's night and day, to be honest.
It's unfair to compare the other sports to football. Tony Vitello is terrific. He's terrific in every way, in my opinion. I think he's the total package in terms of a coach. We'll see what he ultimately accomplishes over the rest of his time at Tennessee. But he has a huge salary at Tennessee right now because of his success over the last couple of years. he would not have that salary if not for what football means. I mean, it still drives everything else. So it's unfair to baseball, basketball, Lady Vols, if you want to try to compare them to football. Football is what drives everything. Everybody recognizes that. Danny White especially knows that. And, fans, I think, watching and listening recognize that as well. And that doesn't mean the other sports don't count. They matter in a huge way, and they matter as much at Tennessee as anywhere in the country. We joked in the summer about the everything school because of what was going on at Kentucky. That's true, though. The other sports get a ton of support. That's been shown, but it's not all about football. It's mostly about football, and football is back in a huge conversation. National spotlight, game day returning for a second time this season. And that's great to see. It helps us, as you mentioned too, my radio show, what you're doing with VolQuest and Locked On Vols and other Knoxville media as well. There's more attention on what we're doing, which is always good.
See, you put it in the perfect terms. You said the politically correct answer. You made me look like I'm just like, baseball doesn't matter. Basketball doesn't matter. See, that's why you're the pro. You've been doing it forever, and I'm just some young, stupid guy. Hey, LSU game, Tennessee whooped them. I mean, from the get-go, man. I mean, that was the most complete game of the Josh Heupel era. Special teams was so big. Tennessee's run game was so big. The defense, what a bounce-back effort. Josh Heupel, Hendon Hooker did not have to be Superman. And you still won 40-13. I mean, just a complete beatdown of the Bayou.
Yeah, last week on the radio, we had some Tennessee fans saying, hey, we're going to blow them out. And Jason Swain and I were like, well, be careful about that kind of expectation. Tennessee did blow them out. And I'm also looping Swain into this so that people don't say, well, what do you know? Swain knows. And he also was skeptical of that. I mean, the point spread was 2.5 to 3 points going in for a reason. Now, I didn't know that there was going to be a fumbled kickoff to open the game where Tennessee would have an instant score, and that's one play. But it set the tone and put more pressure on LSU. It affected how Brian Kelly was coaching, but that's the Tennessee effect. That's the Josh Heupel effect. This offense, how good it is, it changes how coaches call games. We'll see if that's the case this week with Alabama. Alabama has its own questions on the offensive side, but that's the strength of Josh Heupel, Hendon Hooker, and everybody else on offense, what they're able to do. It applies pressure, and if you make mistakes and you get behind even more and you have to play catch-up against Tennessee's offense, maybe you can come back, but I'd say good luck, and I'd say most often you fall behind like LSU did, you're going to have a result like LSU did, getting run out of its own stadium.
Josh, I know you saw the scene there towards the end of the football game. I mean, there were probably, I don't know. I'm not Jimmy Himes. I'm so bad at, playing the numbers game, but there were a lot of fans that stayed, came down to that lower bowl in the south end zone, and it was a party there right after the game was over. What a scene. It was loud. It felt like, and it looked like a Tennessee home game just from the camera shots and everything. I mean, obviously it wasn't, but I mean, it was a great look for Tennessee, in a football game on the road. LSU is not like a trip to Vanderbilt, not like a trip to South Carolina or to Athens. I mean, it's down there, right? What a scene from the Tennessee faithful. And I mean, there's a lot of people that watch this show and listen to the show that were DMing me and texting me and stuff. And I mean, there were a lot of people down there.
Yeah, for sure. And whether fans knew that a blowout was going to happen or not, I think fans have been able to sense that this team is capable of doing something special and knew that Tennessee was a favorite at LSU. I mean, how often does that happen? We've talked about that going in, and then for the game to play out the way that it did, it was a true celebration. So think about, there are a lot of Tennessee fans that live in either Louisiana or close to Louisiana that were able to get there or drove down from Tennessee, wherever they ended up from. Vol Nation is all over, but that have been waiting on that kind of game, a big-time opponent. LSU is one of the biggest names in college football, and to be able to have that kind of showing. I wrote an article after the game talking about Tennessee fans waiting for so long on that kind of win. Think about it, Neyland Stadium. Alabama's done it. Florida fans have done it where their team is blowing Tennessee out, and Tennessee fans leave late because I can't stay around to watch this anymore. And the other fans kind of took over. This was Tennessee's chance to do that. This was Tennessee fans with this frustration that has been building and growing and accelerating over the last 15 years, being able to celebrate. I thought about that with players, with coaches on Tennessee's football team that knew how they were being talked about a year ago, former players, guys that have been in the NFL and they've been dealing with locker rooms of Georgia and Florida and Alabama and LSU players making fun of them on Sundays after how Tennessee played on Saturdays. They're getting the laugh now. So just good for everybody to see that. Now, it's also created a belief in what Tennessee can do, which is great. That's why this week is more fun as well, because there's belief that Tennessee can build on the win against Florida, the blowout at LSU, to have a real shot at Alabama for the first time in a long time.
Yeah, and on that, it's kind of twofold here. Like you're 5-0, you're 2-0 in SEC play. You got the number one scoring offense in the SEC, one of the best offenses in the country. Things are going well. But I think every Tennessee fan will say, well, there's Alabama, there's Georgia coming up.
Mm-hmm.
Those are going to be tough. And sure, can Tennessee win those games? Absolutely. There's no reason to say Tennessee has no chance, because Tennessee absolutely has a chance. It's going to be tough. But again, I think if Tennessee goes in there, and if you lose to Alabama, you're still a top 10 football team. You go in there, you lose to Georgia, you're still a top 10 football team. This is still a good football team. You might not win those games, but that still shouldn't take away from what this team's already accomplished and what it can accomplish this year. But still, I'm looking at glass half full. I understand that. But Tennessee, Alabama this weekend, you and I were talking off the air, for the first time in 6-7 years, Tennessee realistically has a chance to win this football game. That's huge. What must happen for Tennessee to pull off this upset?
Yeah, and the last time we went into this game talking about Tennessee with a shot to beat Alabama realistically was 2016. And actually, pregame kickoff, when you start to hear about the injuries that Tennessee had and the players that were unavailable, and then Alvin Kamara gets injured early, it was a demolition in Neyland Stadium. It was really ugly to watch. This is not that. Tennessee is going in. Actually, I know there's the Tillman question, but I would say with a health advantage compared to Alabama because of their quarterback situation and Tennessee's offense, what it's capable of doing, what it's proven it can do at this point. Eric, I think that's realistically where the conversation is. Tennessee has to prepare to go score points. Bryce Young or no Bryce Young, Tennessee's defense stepped up in a big way, I thought, on Saturday, and I think is somewhere in between what some of the numbers say, but it's not a great Tennessee defense. I don't think anybody's making that case either. So expect Alabama to be able to score. Tennessee has to apply pressure. I think of last year's Ole Miss-Alabama game. I think Tennessee needs to be smarter than Ole Miss was. I thought Lane Kiffin was too aggressive going in. Remember that game where Lane makes the let's get your popcorn ready conversation, throws his headset down. If you look at the odds makers, they're saying Tennessee has a better chance going in than Ole Miss did in that game. But Ole Miss was a little too aggressive, didn't take some points early, and then it had to play catch up too much. But Alabama scored 42 in that game. You have to plan to score 30-plus in this game to have, I think, a real chance. But Tennessee's capable of doing that. Tennessee has gone 40 or close to 40 in the two SEC games, 38 and 40 points against Florida and LSU. And it's going to be more difficult. There are more talented players on Alabama's side, but I think schematically Tennessee is going to be able to come up with some ways to get guys open at wide receiver. You just expect that to be able to happen. And then you have Hendon Hooker, who to this point just handles everything so well. Have to protect him, have to take care of the football. The ball came out twice against LSU, and Tennessee fell on it from the quarterback position, then a running back fumble where the ball goes out of bounds. If that ball bounces to Alabama this time, then you're probably going to run out of a chance to win the game. So those little things, the cliche things we talked about, the coaches I know preach, they matter more in this kind of game because you obviously have less margin for error. You're an underdog in this game, but Tennessee has a really good chance to win the game because the offense is one of the best in the country.
And 12 penalties for 125 yards, that will get you beat against Alabama.
Sure.
100%. You're exactly right. I sound like a football coach, but the little things in games like this, when you're a 9.5 point or 7.5 point dog going up against a top ranked team in the country or number 3, top 5, whatever they are, that type of stuff will get you beat. So it's going to come down to it. Last thing, man. Hey, let's just have a little fun here. If Tennessee were to win on Saturday, what's the scene at Neyland? What's the scene in Knoxville Saturday night to early Sunday morning?
Well, I'll be at the stadium like you, so I'm supposed to be covering it. But I don't know. I might hightail it out of there and start driving north or south somewhere because Knoxville might explode. So I got to get out of Knoxville. But it's going to be everything that you could probably imagine going in or what you might remember. I mean, there is legitimacy going in to compare this game, how big it is. It's the biggest game since, that question, fill in the blank. Well, the games that going in based on rankings and the records of the teams and what is on the line potentially with a win, mean, it goes back to the 90s when Tennessee was competing for national championships and won one in 98. So I'm not saying Tennessee's going to go win a national title, but I mean, if Tennessee wins, which is your question here, well, then Tennessee is going to be talked about as a very real playoff team, as one of the top two maybe contenders to win the SEC, at least legitimately one of the big three still with Alabama and Georgia, because that Georgia game is still looming. So whatever you're imagining going in, Saturday could be like if Tennessee wins, Tennessee ends the streak against Alabama, it can be that and more.
Win, lose, or draw, you and Josh Swain, you and Jason Swain, Ball for Life. We're going to talk about it on Josh and Swain, noon to 3 every weekday on The Sports Animal, correct?
Yeah, we have some VFLs coming on the show this week to kind of relive some past Alabama games. It's a big week for Swain. He's a Huntsville, Alabama native, not too fond of the Tide. So breaking down the game, talking to Tennessee players, we're going to have a lot of fun the rest of the week, just like you.
Josh, appreciate it, man. Thanks so much.
You got it. Thank you.
Josh Ward every Wednesday right here on Locked On Vols. Give him a follow at Josh_Ward. Hey, that's going to do it. We took a look at the PFF offensive grades, the defensive grades, and of course we heard from our buddy Josh Ward. Got some more guests coming up lined up for the rest of the week, previewing Tennessee and Alabama. So this is your one-stop shop for everything you need Tennessee against Alabama. Can't wait to talk to you guys again tomorrow. Make Locked On SEC your second listen, right behind Locked On Vols, your first listen each and every day. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Pound that like button here on YouTube as well. Guys, thanks so much. Same time, same place. We'll do it again tomorrow right here on Locked On Vols.